Gold looks powerful because everyone understands it, but that may be exactly why some rare gems are becoming more dangerous in the luxury market. They are harder to price, harder to find, and almost impossible to replace once the best pieces disappear. A stone small enough to fit on a fingertip can quietly sell for more than a bar of gold. Not because it is useful, because someone wealthy believes there may never be another one like it. That is where the gemstone market becomes strange. Beauty turns into scarcity. Scarcity turns into competition, and competition turns into value. But the first gemstone on this countdown became valuable for the most unexpected reason of all. For centuries, people did not even realize what it truly was. Don't forget to press and hold that like button, leave a comment, and hit subscribe before we begin. Number 10. Spinel. Long before Spinel became one of the most talked about collector gemstones in elite auctions, it spent centuries living under another identity entirely. Some of the world's most famous rubies were never rubies at all. One of them sat in the British crown jewels for generations. Another traveled through wars, royal dynasties, and imperial treasuries, while experts believed it represented one of the greatest rubies ever discovered. Only later did modern gemology reveal the truth. These legendary stones were actually spinels. That revelation changed everything. For centuries, spinel existed in the shadow of ruby because the two often formed in the same marble deposits and shared an almost identical deep crimson appearance. Without modern spectroscopy and advanced mineral testing, separating them was nearly impossible. As a result, some of history's most celebrated gemstones unknowingly built Spinel's reputation long before the market recognized the name itself. And that delayed recognition is precisely what makes Spinel so fascinating in today's luxury market. Unlike mass-market gemstones driven by familiarity alone, collector-grade Spinels have become a study in market correction. Wealthy buyers are no longer chasing only famous names. They are chasing rarity, untreated quality, origin, and historical significance. In many cases, fine spinels now offer all four. The rarest examples from Myanmar display an intense red glow that rivals top Burmese rubies, but with one crucial difference. Truly exceptional spinels remain far less available than most collectors realize. High-quality stones above a few carats are remarkably scarce, especially untreated material with vivid saturation and strong clarity. Auction houses noticed the shift years ago. Prices for elite spinels began climbing quietly as collectors searched for stones that still felt undiscovered compared to heavily commercialized luxury gems. Instead of buying into a crowded market dominated by branding and familiarity, experienced buyers began focusing on gemstones with room for historical reevaluation. Spinel fit that narrative perfectly. But perhaps the most powerful force behind Spinel's rise is psychological rather than geological. Collectors are drawn to objects with hidden stories, and few gemstones carry a story stranger than this one. A stone mistaken for royalty for hundreds of years before finally revealing its true identity to the world. Today, Spinel is no longer viewed as a substitute for ruby. In elite gemstone circles, it has become something potentially more powerful, a rediscovered rarity whose value is still being rewritten. Number 9. Black opal. Some gemstones are valuable because they are rare. Black opal became valuable because it appears almost unreal. Under shifting light, electric flashes of blue, green, crimson, and molten gold seem to move beneath the surface as if the stone itself were alive. No photograph fully captures it. No two stones display the same internal fire, and that unpredictability has become one of the most powerful forces behind black opal's rise in the luxury gemstone market. Unlike diamonds, which are graded through highly standardized systems, black opals exist in a category driven by individuality. Their value depends on patterns, brightness, movement, body tone, and color combinations that can never be duplicated exactly again. In elite collector circles, the finest examples are often discussed less like jewelry and more like miniature natural artworks created by geological chance. And almost all of the world's finest black opals come from a single region. Lightning Ridge, Australia. That geographic limitation matters enormously. Gold can be melted, refined, and traded globally in near-identical form, but the most valuable black opals emerge from highly specific underground conditions that took millions of years to develop. Once exceptional material leaves the ground, there is no manufacturing process capable of reproducing the same natural arrangement of color and darkness. That scarcity became even more important as luxury buyers began shifting away from purely traditional assets. Collectors who already owned gold, diamonds, and watches started searching for objects with stronger emotional uniqueness, pieces that felt impossible to replicate. Black opal fit perfectly into that demand because even expert gem dealers cannot predict exactly what patterns will emerge when rough material is cut open. Some reveal soft rolling flashes. Others explode with violent electric color that seems to ignite from inside the stone. The rarest examples display a phenomenon known as harlequin pattern, where blocks of color form an organized mosaic so uncommon that many collectors spend years searching for a single exceptional specimen. And while black opals were once viewed as niche collector stones, auction houses and luxury jewelers gradually recognized something important. The best material was becoming dramatically harder to source. Mining output fluctuated. High-grade stones became scarcer. Demand from luxury buyers increased. Prices followed. But black opal's true strength may not come from scarcity alone. It comes from emotional reaction. Because unlike gold, which represents stability and tradition, a great black opal creates fascination almost instantly. It feels mysterious, unpredictable, and strangely personal. Qualities modern luxury buyers increasingly value in a world filled with mass-produced perfection. And that shift in psychology may explain why some collectors now see extraordinary black opals not simply as gemstones, but as irreplaceable pieces of the earth itself. Number 8. Paraiba Tourmaline. At first glance, Paraiba Tourmaline does not look natural. The color appears too electric, too saturated, too alive. Even experienced gemstone collectors encountering a fine Paraiba for the first time often react the same way: disbelief. The neon glow seems closer to artificial light than anything created beneath the Earth's surface. Yet this extraordinary blue-green intensity is entirely natural, produced by trace amounts of copper embedded deep within the crystal structure millions of years ago. And that single geological accident transformed Paraiba Tourmaline into one of the most explosive luxury gemstone stories of the modern era. When the stone was first discovered in Brazil during the late 1980s, the market barely understood what it was seeing. The original material came from the remote state of Paraiba, where miners worked under brutal conditions, searching for something legendary hidden beneath the hills. For years, the search produced almost nothing. Then suddenly stones unlike anything the gem trade had seen before began emerging from the ground. The finest examples looked electric. Prices reacted almost immediately. Collectors realized these stones possessed something incredibly rare in luxury markets: instant visual recognition. A top Paraiba does not require gemological expertise to feel extraordinary. Even across a crowded room, its glow separates itself from nearly every other colored gemstone. That visual impact became a major driver of demand among elite buyers searching for gemstones that felt modern, exotic, and nearly impossible to ignore. But the real reason Paraiba Tourmaline began outperforming many traditional luxury assets was far more dangerous for the market. Supply started disappearing. The original Brazilian mines never produced large quantities to begin with, and high-grade material became increasingly scarce as extraction slowed. Smaller deposits later appeared in Mozambique and Nigeria, but collectors continued treating the finest Brazilian stones as something almost untouchable, especially neon specimens with vivid saturation and strong clarity. Suddenly, the market faced a perfect storm: limited supply, global recognition, and emotional visual appeal powerful enough to create immediate obsession. Auction prices climbed aggressively. Luxury houses pushed Paraiba into elite jewelry collections. Collectors who once focused primarily on diamonds and sapphires began competing for stones weighing only a few carats because exceptional material had become so difficult to secure. And unlike gold, which carries value through stability and familiarity, Paraiba Tourmaline represents something far more emotionally volatile. Shock. Because the moment a truly exceptional Paraiba catches light, the reaction is almost instinctive. It does not simply look expensive, it looks improbable, as if the earth briefly created a color it was never supposed to make. And in the modern luxury market, rarity becomes even more powerful when it feels impossible to repeat. Number 7. Alexandrite. In daylight, it can appear deep green or bluish teal. Under warm evening light, the same stone suddenly burns red, violet, or raspberry. No camera trick, no treatment, no hidden mechanism. Alexandrite changes color in real time, and that single phenomenon turned it into one of the most psychologically fascinating gemstones ever discovered. Unlike traditional luxury assets that derive value from consistency and predictability, Alexandrite built its reputation through instability. Collectors became obsessed not only with rarity, but with transformation itself, the feeling that the gemstone never fully reveals its identity all at once. That emotional unpredictability matters far more than many people realize, because in elite gemstone markets, collectors are not only purchasing minerals, they are purchasing experiences that feel impossible to mass produce. And Alexandrite delivers one of the rarest experiences in gemology, a dramatic optical shift visible with the naked eye. The finest stones can appear almost emerald-like in daylight before shifting into rich red tones indoors. Exceptional examples display strong transitions with remarkable clarity, something so uncommon that many collectors spend years searching for stones capable of producing the effect at a truly elite level. And the original Russian material that made Alexandrite famous is extraordinarily scarce. Discovered in the Ural Mountains during the 19th century, Alexandrite quickly became associated with Russian imperial prestige because its color change mirrored the military colors of Imperial Russia. But the historic deposits that produced the legendary stones were never abundant, and fine material became increasingly difficult to source as production declined. That scarcity pushed the gemstone into a completely different category. Instead of competing with ordinary jewelry stones, Alexandrite evolved into a collector phenomenon driven by rarity, optical performance, and historical mystique all at once. Then the luxury market changed again. As wealthy buyers began moving toward highly distinctive assets rather than standardized luxury goods, Alexandrite gained new momentum. Unlike diamonds, where thousands of stones can appear visually similar, every Alexandrite feels intensely individual because lighting itself becomes part of the gemstone's personality. And that creates a strange psychological effect on collectors. A great Alexandrite never feels static. It changes with the room. It changes with time. It changes with atmosphere. In a luxury world increasingly filled with precision manufacturing and controlled perfection, that unpredictability has become part of its appeal. Auction houses recognized the shift years ago. Prices for exceptional Alexandrites climbed steadily as elite collectors competed for stones combining strong color change, untreated quality, and significant size. A combination almost impossibly difficult to find today. But perhaps Alexandrite's greatest advantage over traditional assets like gold is not simply rarity, it is memorability. Because once someone witnesses a truly extraordinary Alexandrite transform under changing light, the experience becomes very difficult to forget. And luxury markets tend to place enormous value on objects that create emotional reactions impossible to duplicate. Number 6. Red Beryl. Most people will never see a fine red beryl in person. Not because it is locked inside private collections, not because museums refuse to display it, but because so little of it exists that even many gemstone collectors have gone years without encountering a truly exceptional specimen. And that level of scarcity has quietly pushed red beryl into one of the most unusual positions in the luxury gemstone world. For decades, diamonds dominated public perception of rarity. Marketing campaigns, luxury branding, and global recognition created the impression that diamond represented the ultimate scarce gemstone. But deep inside the collector market, another reality slowly emerged. Some lesser-known stones were dramatically rarer than diamonds had ever been. Red beryl became one of the clearest examples, sometimes referred to as red emerald. Although gemologists avoid the term, red beryl forms under an extraordinarily narrow set of geological conditions almost never replicated in nature. High-quality material has primarily been found in a remote region of Utah, where volcanic activity and mineral chemistry aligned in a way so specific that commercial-scale production never truly developed. That changes the psychology of the market completely. Gold exists in enormous quantities worldwide. Diamonds, despite their luxury status, still operate through large international supply systems. But red beryl occupies an entirely different category, one defined by microscopic production and near-total obscurity outside specialized gem circles. Even small stones can command astonishing attention among collectors because clean, vividly saturated examples are incredibly difficult to obtain. Fine crystals above a few carats are so uncommon that many gem dealers may never handle one during their careers. And paradoxically, that lack of public familiarity became part of its strength. In elite luxury markets, collectors increasingly search for assets that feel undiscovered by the mainstream. Once a gemstone becomes heavily commercialized, some buyers lose interest because exclusivity begins to disappear. Red beryl moved in the opposite direction. Its rarity remained hidden, quietly building intrigue among insiders while the broader public focused elsewhere. Then auction markets and high-end collectors began paying closer attention. The moment luxury buyers realized just how limited the supply truly was, perception started shifting rapidly. Instead of asking whether red beryl was beautiful enough to compete with famous gemstones, collectors began asking a far more important question: how many exceptional stones are even available on Earth? That question transformed the market, because extreme rarity creates a different kind of luxury psychology. Ownership becomes less about decoration and more about access. Access to something most people will never even encounter. And in a world where true scarcity is becoming harder to find, red beryl gained value through a powerful idea few assets can replicate. Not simply that it is expensive, but that it is genuinely difficult to replace. Number 5. Imperial Jadeite. In some luxury circles, the most powerful gemstone in the room is not the largest diamond, it is jade. Not ordinary jade sold in tourist markets or mass-produced jewelry stores, but top-grade Imperial Jadeite, a gemstone so culturally significant that elite collectors have treated it as a symbol of status, lineage, and influence for generations. And unlike many luxury assets driven primarily by Western branding, jadeite built its reputation through something far older and more durable: cultural reverence. For centuries across parts of Asia, especially within China's imperial history, jade was never viewed as simple decoration. It represented virtue, protection, balance, authority, and social standing all at once. Emperors treasured it. Aristocratic families passed it through generations. Wealthy collectors competed for exceptional material long before modern luxury markets even existed. That deep historical foundation created something unusually powerful in today's gemstone market: trust. Because while trends rise and disappear constantly in the luxury world, Imperial Jadeite never depended entirely on trend cycles to maintain prestige. Its value became embedded inside cultural identity itself. The finest jadeite displays an almost surreal translucency combined with intensely saturated emerald green color. Top specimens appear luminous from within, with a smooth texture that feels dramatically different from faceted gemstones like diamonds or sapphires. Rather than sparkling aggressively under light, Imperial Jadeite glows softly, a quieter form of luxury that many elite collectors find even more sophisticated. And truly exceptional material is extraordinarily scarce. Most jadeite available globally does not approach imperial quality. Fine translucent stones with vivid, evenly distributed color represent only a tiny fraction of production, particularly untreated pieces capable of meeting the standards demanded by top auction houses and serious collectors. Then another force accelerated the market even further: Global wealth expansion across Asia dramatically increased competition for museum-grade jadeite. Auction records climbed as ultra-high net worth buyers pursued elite pieces not only for beauty, but for what those pieces communicated socially. Ownership became associated with refinement, access, heritage, and long-term wealth preservation. That distinction matters enormously. Gold signals wealth in a direct and universally understood way. But Imperial Jadeite often functions differently. In certain collector circles, it signals cultural sophistication, the kind of luxury knowledge that exists beneath obvious displays of status. And because supply remains extremely limited while demand from elite buyers continues expanding, the finest jadeite pieces have entered a category where emotional significance and market value reinforce one another simultaneously. But perhaps the most important reason jadeite continues outperforming many traditional luxury assets is this. Its desirability was never built entirely on fashion. It was built on meaning, and luxury markets tend to become exceptionally powerful when an object represents not only rarity and beauty, but identity itself. Number 4. Kashmir Sapphire. There are gemstones collectors admire. And there are gemstones collectors speak about almost like legends. Kashmir sapphires belong to the second category. Even among elite sapphire dealers, the name carries unusual weight because the world's finest Kashmir stones are tied to one of the most extraordinary accidents in gemstone history. A remote Himalayan deposit discovered after a landslide exposed hidden sapphire-bearing rock high in the mountains during the 19th century. For a brief moment, the earth revealed something extraordinary. Then it nearly vanished again. The sapphires from Kashmir quickly became famous for a quality so distinctive that collectors still describe it using almost poetic language. The finest stones display an intensely rich blue combined with a soft, velvety appearance, unlike the sharper brilliance seen in many other sapphires. Instead of looking overly reflective or glassy, top Kashmir stones appear to glow internally with a deep, almost atmospheric richness. And the supply was always limited. The mine sat in an unforgiving region where weather, altitude, and isolation made extraction incredibly difficult. Production declined rapidly, and by the early 20th century, the most legendary deposits had already become largely exhausted. That changed the psychology of the market forever. Because unlike gold, which continues to circulate through modern production systems, Kashmir sapphires became tied to a closed historical chapter. The greatest stones were no longer being created through ongoing mining. They were already dispersed into royal collections, private vaults, luxury estates, and high-end jewelry houses around the world. Suddenly, provenance became everything. Collectors were not simply buying sapphires anymore. They were chasing a specific origin connected to a legendary source that could never realistically be recreated. And in elite gemstone markets, origin can transform value dramatically when supply becomes historically frozen. Auction houses understood this years ago. Whenever exceptional Kashmir sapphires appear publicly, competition intensifies because collectors know opportunities are rare and increasingly unpredictable. Fine, untreated stones with strong color, velvety texture, and documented origin can command astonishing premiums compared to sapphires from more active modern deposits. But the fascination surrounding Kashmir sapphires goes deeper than scarcity alone. They represent disappearance. Modern luxury markets are filled with products that can eventually be manufactured again, mined again, or scaled again. Kashmir sapphires resist that logic completely because their most important source already belongs to the past. And that creates an emotional response extremely powerful in collector psychology. The feeling that something beautiful existed briefly and may never exist in quite the same way again. That idea transformed Kashmir sapphires from rare gemstones into historical artifacts of luxury itself. And in high-end collector markets, objects connected to lost worlds often become more valuable with every passing generation. Number 3. Fancy, vivid pink diamonds. At the highest levels of the luxury market, price alone stops being the real competition. Access becomes the competition. And few gemstones demonstrate that reality more clearly than fancy, vivid pink diamonds. Unlike traditional white diamonds, whose value is often tied to standardized grading systems and broader commercial availability, exceptional pink diamonds operate inside a far smaller and far more aggressive world. One shaped by extreme scarcity, emotional prestige, and elite auction warfare. Because truly important pink diamonds are not merely purchased. They are pursued. The finest stones display an intensity of color so rare that even minor shifts in saturation can create enormous differences in value. Soft pastel pinks already command extraordinary attention, but vivid and highly saturated examples enter an entirely different category where collectors, luxury houses, and ultra-wealthy buyers begin competing with unusual intensity. And then the supply crisis made everything even more dramatic. For years, the Argyle mine in Western Australia dominated global pink diamond production, supplying the vast majority of the world's finest natural pink diamonds. But the mine's output was always astonishingly limited compared to white diamond production. Then, in 2020, Argyle officially closed. That moment changed collector psychology almost instantly, because luxury markets react differently when buyers realize the future supply of an already rare asset may become even more restricted permanently. Suddenly, pink diamonds were no longer viewed simply as beautiful rare stones. They became finite objects connected to a disappearing source. Auction prices accelerated, private collectors intensified acquisitions, luxury brands increased focus on ultra-rare colored diamonds as symbols of exclusivity rather than conventional jewelry. And unlike gold, where ownership is relatively accessible across global markets, elite pink diamonds created something psychologically far more powerful: selective ownership. Only a tiny number of people can realistically acquire top specimens, especially vivid stones with exceptional clarity and important provenance. That limitation transformed pink diamonds into social signals, operating at the highest levels of wealth and status. But another factor pushed demand even further: visibility. A remarkable pink diamond instantly attracts attention in a way gold rarely does. The color itself feels emotionally charged, softer than ruby, rarer than sapphire, and dramatically less familiar than traditional diamonds. That unfamiliarity became part of the appeal because collectors increasingly sought luxury objects that still felt surprising in an oversaturated market. And in elite auctions, surprise creates energy. Bidders stop responding only to material value and begin responding emotionally to rarity, prestige, and the fear that another opportunity may never appear again. That combination has helped exceptional pink diamonds achieve some of the most extraordinary auction performances in modern gemstone history. But perhaps their greatest advantage over traditional luxury assets is this: gold represents wealth. A great pink diamond represents exclusivity that wealth alone still cannot easily guarantee. And in elite collector markets, that distinction can become incredibly valuable. Number 2. Burmese Ruby. Long before luxury markets tracked auction records or investment performance, rulers were already willing to wage wars over rubies. That alone says something extraordinary about their power. Across centuries, Burmese rubies developed a reputation few gemstones have ever achieved, not simply as objects of beauty, but as symbols of vitality, authority, protection, and elite status. Kings wore them into battle. Royal courts treated them as treasures equal to crowns and gold reserves. Entire trade routes formed around their movement through Asia and beyond. And unlike many luxury trends that fade with time, demand for exceptional Burmese rubies never truly disappeared. It evolved. The finest stones from Myanmar, historically known as Burma, possess a color so distinctive that gem dealers still describe it using almost mythic language: pigeon blood red. Under the right conditions, these rubies display a vivid crimson glow with subtle fluorescence that makes the color appear almost internally illuminated. But color alone does not explain their enduring dominance. What makes Burmese rubies so important in luxury markets is the way they bridge two worlds simultaneously: ancient prestige and modern scarcity. because while tastes in jewelry changed repeatedly across generations, elite rubies retained their emotional authority. A great ruby still communicates intensity, rarity, and power in a way few gemstones can replicate. Unlike softer luxury aesthetics that come and go with fashion cycles, fine Burmese rubies feel permanent. That permanence became even more significant as top-quality supply tightened dramatically. Political instability, mining restrictions, sanctions, and declining production all contributed to growing scarcity around untreated Burmese material. High-grade stones with strong color, clean clarity, and respected certification became increasingly difficult to source, especially larger specimens capable of attracting serious international collectors. Then auction markets pushed prices even higher. Exceptional Burmese rubies began setting extraordinary records as elite buyers competed for stones combining rarity, historical origin, and untreated quality. And unlike some luxury assets driven primarily by temporary hype, Burmese rubies carried something far more durable into those auctions. Centuries of established desire. That history matters enormously. Many luxury products become valuable because marketing convinces people they should matter. Burmese rubies operate differently. Their prestige existed long before modern advertising, modern branding, or modern finance. Empires valued them. Dynasties protected them. Collectors pursued them across generations separated by centuries. Very few assets can claim that level of uninterrupted fascination, and perhaps that is why Burmese rubies continue outperforming many traditional luxury stores of value today. Gold represents stability, but a truly exceptional Burmese ruby represents something more emotionally powerful, concentrated rarity carrying the weight of human admiration across history itself. And when a luxury object remains desirable through changing cultures, collapsing empires, shifting economies, and evolving generations, it enters a category few assets ever reach: timeless demand. Number 1. Colombian Emeralds. Few gemstones have inspired as much obsession as Colombian emeralds, not admiration. Obsession. For centuries, these stones have moved through royal courts, black markets, luxury auctions, cartel territories, museum collections, Hollywood jewelry houses, and private vaults belonging to some of the wealthiest families in the world. Entire fortunes have been built around them. Criminal networks fought over them. Collectors spent decades searching for exceptional specimens that might never appear publicly again. And through all of it, demand only intensified. That level of fascination is extremely rare in luxury markets because Colombian emeralds possess something difficult to measure but impossible to ignore: emotional magnetism. The finest stones display a green unlike almost anything else in gemology. Intensely rich, deeply saturated, yet somehow alive with internal softness. Unlike diamonds, which often impress through brilliance and precision, exceptional emeralds create a more dangerous kind of beauty. Their color feels organic, untamed, almost hypnotic. And the world's greatest examples came from a remarkably small number of legendary Colombian mines: Muzo, Chivor, Coscuez. Those names became symbols of elite emerald quality because the geological conditions inside these deposits produced a uniquely vivid green collectors struggled to find anywhere else on Earth. Over time, origin itself became part of the stone's value. A documented Colombian emerald from a prestigious source could command dramatically higher prices than visually similar material from other regions. But beauty alone does not explain why Colombian emeralds evolved into one of the most powerful luxury gemstone markets in history. Scarcity played a major role. Large, untreated stones with exceptional clarity and color are extraordinarily difficult to find because emeralds naturally form with internal fractures and inclusions. In fact, many collectors consider those inclusions part of the gemstone's identity. Tiny geological fingerprints proving the stone formed naturally beneath immense pressure over millions of years. That imperfection became part of the allure. Then came the modern luxury era. Celebrities wore them. Auction houses elevated them. High jewelry brands built entire collections around them. At the same time, stories surrounding Colombian emerald mining grew darker and more legendary. Smuggling routes, cartel influence, armed conflict, and hidden wealth all became intertwined with the emerald trade during certain periods of Colombian history. That dangerous mythology added another psychological layer to the market. The feeling that these stones existed at the intersection of beauty, power, and risk. And luxury markets respond intensely to stories carrying emotional gravity. Because in the end, the most valuable assets are rarely the most practical. They are the most unforgettable. That may be why Colombian emeralds continue outperforming many traditional stores of luxury value today. Gold offers consistency, stability, and universal recognition. But a truly extraordinary Colombian emerald offers something much rarer. A feeling tied to history, danger, rarity, status, nature, and human desire all at once. And when a gemstone becomes powerful enough to embody all of those things simultaneously, it stops behaving like jewelry. It becomes mythology people are willing to own. Gold represents wealth, but these gemstones represent something far harder to replace, rarity tied to history, obsession, and human emotion. Some came from vanished mines, some survived empires, and some became valuable simply because the world realized too late how rare they truly were. That may be what makes elite gemstones so powerful in modern luxury markets. Not just beauty. Scarcity people cannot recreate. So which gemstone on this list felt the most unforgettable?